30 pounds of fat. Well, right, that would be part of the big overarching primary promise. There's also lots of other benefits that they will experience when they lose 30 pounds, right? They'll sleep better at night. Their cholesterol will come down, better heart health, right? They'll gain more confidence. Maybe they'll have tendency to be more social. They'll have more energy. They won't feel the 5 o'clock dip. They won't have as much knee pain. All of those are benefits. All of those are beneficial, right? All of those are things that we're going to talk about, assuming that they're important to the prospect throughout our copy. But when it comes to the primary promise, you want to identify what is the one overarching change, transformation, or result that we are going to focus on. The one big payoff that means the most to your prospect as it relates to the problem that they have. And when forming the primary promise, number one is that promise of result. When you're thinking about what am I going to promise them? Because in every marketing campaign, right, is built in some form or fashion on the back of a promise of result. That promise of result needs to be what I call big, bold, and audacious, right? It needs to be a big promise. It needs to be an audacious promise. It needs to be an exciting result. If it's not big, if it's not bold, if it's not exciting, then your prospect isn't going to care. In other words, if we were marketing and selling a traffic generation program, right, and we talked about our promise was how to get an additional 11 visitors a week to your website, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters because the promise is insignificant. Right? Like it's insignificant. It doesn't matter. You could have testimonials. You could have a great offer, right? All that. But who cares about 11 more visitors a week? It's insignificant, right? To the average prospect. And so the promise, the result itself needs to be big enough, bold enough, and audacious enough. Next, though, it needs to be true and believable. And true and believable are not the same thing. Right. And so not everything that's true is believable and not everything that's believable is true. We certainly know that today. And so what you've got to recognize is that you want the biggest, boldest, most audacious promise of an outcome that you can make that is most compelling and most exciting to your prospect, that is also true and believable. And for believable, what I would say to you is that you've got evidence, support, proof to back it up, right? To back it up. But we want the biggest, boldest, most audacious claim that we can make that is true and believable because we can back it up with support, evidence, or proof. And so big, bold, audacious, true, and believable. Next, when you think of your promise, and you heard me say this earlier, and this is one of the most valuable lessons that I can share with you on this day. And then you're going to see how this is played out in the actual copy tomorrow. But right, a promise that is compelling is one that is specific, concrete, and tangible. It's not vague. Vague promises of result, vague promises of payoff mean nothing to prospects. They roll off your prospects back. It's lazy copy. It's the way the average marketer will write. They're either afraid to commit, they're afraid to narrow, or they just don't spend the time in uncovering, right, what the market really wants and what is the exact payoff that the market's craving that their product or service can deliver. But vague general claims, vague general promises are meaningless to your prospect. When you promise something, you want it to be specific. You want it to be concrete. You want it to be tangible. You want it to be something that they can see again in their mind's eye. And a great judge of this, right, is that it's measurable. And what I mean by measurable is that they can know with certainty when it's been experienced, like when it's been experienced. So you say to somebody, get a better night's sleep, right? Get a better night's sleep. What does that mean? What do I picture in my mind's eye? Right? How do I measure that? What do I measure that based on? Right? It's not specific enough. It's not concrete. It's not tangible. But if I said, right, sleep soundly, that you'll wake up refreshed at the crack of dawn without ever needing an alarm clock. Right? Like now that's measurable. right? Because I can measure my actual experience against it. And it's that measurability that gives promises weight and impact. And that measurability only comes from specificity and concreteness. Specificity and concreteness. And so what you're looking for, right, is you are looking for a promise. You want to promise something that you can be specific. You're better off, like you heard me say earlier, you're better off narrowing, like shrinking what it is that you are promising. Shrinking meaning narrowing the focus, getting more specific, and being able to promise something specific rather than something vague, right? So rather than you might be, a lot of marketers are afraid to say like, how to lose, lose 13 pounds of fat from your waist in the next 21 days. And I'm just using that as an example, right? What did I just say? Lose 13 pounds of fat in the next 2 weeks or 21 days from your waist. That is specific. A lot of marketers will say, well, I don't want to do that because there are a lot of people that I want to attract that they're not necessarily looking to lose just that amount of weight. They're not looking to just lose it from their waist. They're looking to lose a lot more. And so I just want to say something like reach your target, lose enough weight to reach your target weight loss goal, to reach your target weight loss goal. That's crap. That is garbage, right? Because it's vague, it's general. You cannot picture it in your mind's eye. How quickly will I lose it? Where will I lose it from? How much will I lose, right? Like that's garbage. That type of vague generality should not be anywhere in your copy. And so what you want is measurable. I'm going to be able to know in the next 21 days whether I lost 13 pounds of fat, I'm going to be able to know that. I'm going to be able to measure it. And so really important, like I said, your prospect must be able to envision in their mind's eye the promise that you are making. If they can't conjure it in their mind's eye, you are not specific enough. You're not using enough concrete language. And so the last thing that I'll say about the promise, and then I'm going to answer some questions that look like they came in, is that these are two great exercises. I talk about this in E5, so I don't need to go crazy deep in here, but these are two exercises that you can do to help get an understanding of what your primary promise should be. Number one, the magic wand technique, right? If you could wave a magic wand and you could grant your prospects anything in terms of the problem that they're dealing with, the problem that you're addressing, based on what it is that you know about your prospects, based on the examination and research, what is it that you would grant them? What is the result? What is the payoff? If you could wave a magic wand and there was one thing, right? You got to you can't say, lose weight to improve your heart health, to have more personality and blah, 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 blah. You got to narrow it down. What is that result? What would they tell you? What would they ask you for, right? Like you could wave a magic wand and grant them one thing as it relates to the problem. Next is, the ideal client exercise, right? Imagine your greatest future success story. Take a client that is your greatest success story. Like imagine this into the future, whether you've got a new business, not like, what is the greatest success story? What would you consider the greatest success story? And what exactly are the results that client experienced, right? What did they experience? What happened? What changed? What was the transformation, right? What was the result? This is where you, and I want you to listen to me. This is where you've got to, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. I've got this somewhere in here today, I believe, right? That you've got to sit back, thinking time. Thinking is one of the most valuable things that you can do for your business when it comes to marketing. Oftentimes sitting back, not in front of the computer, maybe with a yellow legal pad and a pen, and just sitting outside or sitting someplace that you don't normally sit. I have a chair over there in the office that I like to sit in. It looks out this window over here. And just thinking about knowing what I know about prospects. What do they want? Knowing what I know about prospects, what is their biggest concern right now? Knowing what I know about the prospects in the market, what's top of mind for them right now? What's going on in their head? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they struggling with as it relates to what we do? if I could wave a magic wand and grant them anything right now, what would be the number one thing that they would ask for based on what it is that I know, what it is that I've seen, the conversations that are taking place on Facebook, based on the comments that I've seen on books related to this topic on Amazon, comments on, blog posts, comments in Facebook groups, comments on YouTube videos. What is it that if I could wave a magic wand right now, what is it that they would ask for? Right? If there was an ideal, perfect success story that the market would say, that's what I want, what would that look like? Right? If I had to come up with, if there was one thing that I could promise them that they would say, this is a game changer. This changes everything for me. This is exactly what I've been wishing for, hoping for, waiting for. What would that be? Right? And this is that kind of activity is not a one-time thing. That is something that you should be doing on a regular basis. I talk about this with our top one clients. Many, they'll be listening to this. I think there are a handful, maybe only a couple on here right now. But is regular thinking time, thinking specifically marketing. Right? Like knowing what I know. And even it goes beyond, let me deviate for 1 second and say this, right? And even sitting back and thinking about knowing what it is that I know is out there that's being offered to the marketplace, knowing what it is that they're struggling with, knowing what it is that they want, knowing what it is that they don't want in terms of a solution, knowing what it is that they like about products, dislike about products. What could I offer? What isn't being offered? How isn't it being offered? If there was a change that I could make to a product or to a result or to an outcome, what would that be? Right? What is what is a problem or an issue that's wreaking havoc for clients that nobody else is addressing that I could address? Now, I'm not saying that I ask all of these questions every time I sit down to think. I might take one and then just think about it for 30 minutes. And I might come up with ideas and write down ideas. And the majority of the ideas that I come up with and the thoughts might be just stream of consciousness. But the point is that, right, like is stepping into the market, seeing it from the market's view, your prospect's view, getting out of your own way, not simply saying like, man, what would be exciting to promote? Not simply saying like, what could I talk really highly about? No, it's got to come from the market. It's got to come from the market. And so hope that makes sense. Before we go on to the next section, let me see. So there are some questions that came over. Okay. So let me see here. How detailed do we go down? Root cause symptom is no clicks, which is attention, which is really big idea issue, which is really lack of mechanism. I would say, so the question is, David asks, how deep do we go? Like how far down the root cause do we go? What I would say is you go down as far enough as, and he's talking about the unaddressed root problem, is you go down as far enough as necessary to hit a problem that is unaddressed that you can solve. And so, right, like ideally, I'm going to go down, like, let's say, right, it's really a big idea issue. Is anybody dealing with the big idea issue? Yeah. Well, okay. What's the cause? No big idea, because let's say there's no mechanism. Anybody dealing with that? Is that no? Boom. That's the one that I'm going to go for. So you go down as low enough, you go down deep enough until you find an unaddressed root problem that you can solve. Once you found an unaddressed root problem that you can solve, there you go. You don't need to go any deeper. You only need to go deep enough, right? In some cases, you might not be able to. In other words, in some cases, you'll go all the way down and there's somebody that's addressing, right? There's somebody out there that's addressing all of those already. The point is that you only have to go down deep enough to identify an unaddressed root problem, even if there are below that, right? But if nobody is here, you don't need to go any deeper. And so hope that answers the question. Yeah. So what we're saying is have a way that is better and different to solve your symptom pain. Here's how. Correct. That's ultimately what we're saying. We're not necessarily saying it in those words, David, but that is absolutely correct. We're like the simple, like don't, all you guys and gals, don't overthink it. Like every campaign, and I'm going to show you this. We're going to get into, like, of course, we're going to get into copy and words, and you're going to see how here's a different way to get the result that you want. Here's a different way to solve your problem. Here's what makes this way better than the others, right? And here's how it works, and here's why it works, and boom, 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 and get excited. And this is something different from you've done before, and here's your chance to get it right now. Like it's not the mistake that, and I want to share this. The mistake is in thinking, the novice mistake when it comes to copy is thinking that it's whiz bang words and phrases that mesmerize your prospect into buying, right? We're not using our words to trick the prospect. We're not using the words to try to hypnotically get the prospect to say, I want to buy, I want to buy. That's not what we're doing. Right? That's nonsense. Like, we're not using trickery. There needs to be there needs to be strategy underneath what we're saying, right? And that strategy is ultimately that strategy is the high level view is what I'm giving you a chunk of today, right? That I've got something different and better to solve your problem and give you the result that you want. And here is why it's better. And here is why it's superior. And here's how you can get it. How we do that in the words and phrases and tonality and voice and language patterns and all that, so that it bypasses their buying filter, their radar, so that it doesn't come off obnoxious and pushy and aggressive and whatnot, so that it moves people to be like, dang, this sounds amazing, right? I need to get this right now. That's what we're going to cover tomorrow. But the strategy is like, look, I got something different. This thing that's different to solve your problem, give you the result that you want, is not only different, but it's better than everything else out there. Let me show you why. Let me show you how it works. Here is the proof. Here is the evidence. Here's what it'll do for you. Instead of suffering with this, you could have this, and here's how you can get it. That's it. Like, don't overthink it. And so the real problem is so mechanism solves real problems and improving. David asked this follow-up question, and I'm going to cruise through these questions and then get back to, because like I said, for those of you that jumped on late, we do have Monday night from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm doing an extra just open Q&A, just flat out open Q&A, no training, just probably 3+ hours of just your questions, copy, blah, blah, blah. But so remember when I said earlier that there's no one size fits all. So meaning that there's no one single formula, that it depends. So let's say we don't identify an unaddressed root problem. We're just going after a problem that others are going after. So, right, the root cause, if you will, is addressed, right? And we're addressing the same root cause that is addressed. Right. Well, what we're going to show is that we've got a unique mechanism, a different way to address that problem. And our different way is better, right? Our different way of addressing that problem is better. And here's why, right? And here's why. When you have an unaddressed root problem, you still have a mechanism, but you say our mechanism is more effective at alleviating these symptoms because it addresses the real underlying root cause. So the only difference here, David, is that when you have an unaddressed root problem, the reason why the unique mechanism is so effective and so valuable is because it alleviates the unaddressed root problem, and it is the only solution that addresses the unaddressed root problem. But when you don't have an unaddressed root problem and you are just addressing a problem that others are, then we're going to demonstrate that our unique mechanism works better, some level of superiority. And I'm going to break this down for you, in fact, in just a second, some level of superiority over the other options. And so hope that makes sense. Todd, within the marketing world, a lot of people think they have a lead gen problem, but in reality, it is an offer problem. Would that be a URP? So what I would say is that you are likely right. there are, Jan, a lot of people that think they've got a lead gen problem. Most of the time it's not a lead gen problem. Most of the time it is an offer problem. But what I would say is that an offer problem or structuring the offer is not an unaddressed root problem. It is being addressed. And so there are many folks that talk about the offer. Now, what I would say to you without going too deep, and this is something that we could unpack on Monday night, is there could be a part of the offer that people get wrong or do wrong or leave out. And it's that part that is the cause of why their offer doesn't work. So while, and that's the kind of the trend that most markets follow, it goes from general to more and more specific, right? Like, in other words, at one point in time, way back, I say this all the time, at one point way back, there was a town doctor. You went to that town doctor, whether you had a lump on your head, a gunshot, or cancer, right? And then it splintered over time and specialty. Same thing here. At one point we saw with traffic generation, it was how to generate website traffic. And then it was how to generate paid traffic, and then how to generate Facebook traffic, or Google AdWords traffic, and then how to generate Facebook traffic, and then how to generate Facebook traffic with retargeting, and you get all this splintering going on. And so the offer, fixing the offer, I wouldn't call it, again, I wouldn't say it's unaddressed, because it is addressed. And so what you're looking for is there something underneath that's unaddressed? Right? Is it the naming that is is there something else that is unaddressed underneath that? Remember that the key word in the unaddressed root problem is unaddressed. What if I teach a thinking method so they can achieve their goals, any goal, how to be specific? I have many different success stories with great achievements with this method, but the achievements are as individual as individuals can be. So, so just saying to somebody, I have a way for you to achieve your goals, or follow this method and you'll achieve your goals, right? That's garbage. That's garbage because it's not garbage. It has nothing to do with you, right? That's garbage because it's been said time and time again. There's zero differentiation there. There's zero separation there. There's very little belief and credibility there. And there's very little, if anything, that I can picture in my mind's eye. What I would tell you is that, and this is something that, you can do a little work and then you can share this with me, present this on Monday, and I'll be more than happy to chat with you and unpack it even more, is what is a tangible result like that we can promise? Is it, pick any one of your most important goals and I'll show you how to experience it in the next 36 days, guaranteed. But I want to get specific, and that's narrow. You may be thinking, well, I don't want, it's not just about one most important goal. It's about teaching people a way of thinking. It's about teaching people how to achieve their life dreams over the course. But you first have to solve the marketing issue, right? The belief issue, the credibility issue. And so we've got to solve that before we can help anybody, right? Before we can help anybody, they've got to buy. Before they could buy, we've got to create engagement. Before we create engagement, we've got to get attention. And so we've got to make sure that we've got something that's going to stop them, right? Prevent mental opt-out, things that I'm going to talk about in a second. And so I would be thinking about, well, that's already been said, right? The idea of how to achieve all your goals. And so how can I communicate, they want to achieve their goals? How else can we talk about that? How else can we look at that? What else can we say? What is more specific? What is more concrete? How can we pick out a piece of that and even just take a piece of that whole process? And how can we guarantee, or not guarantee, but promise that result? And so is that Brian said, my fiance is a therapeutic yoga teacher and her technique helps reduce stress, less pain, and increase range of motion. Struggle how to make this measurable and less vague. Well, yeah. So you say to somebody, so number one is, right. And some of this is so individual to every market that there is no one right answer, right? Obviously, every marketplace is different. And again, we can spend a little bit of time talking about this on Monday. But Brian, you're absolutely right. The idea of reduced stress is incredibly vague. What the heck does that mean? Right? Like, what the heck does that mean? Reduce stress. Same thing with less pain. What does that mean? Less pain where? How much less pain? When? Like, is less pain enough less pain? Like, is a little bit less pain? Is it a lot less pain? Is it pain free? Is it no more pain? Am I going to still need medication? Am I going to have to take medication? Is it like, it's so vague that it just rolls off. It is puffery. And so what I would say is, when it comes to stress, like, again, what are the symptoms that the prospect is having? What are they dealing with in their life? Don't just talk in vague generalities. Like, in other words, like they're stressed. What does that mean? What does that lead to? What does that cause in their life? What's happening? What are they feeling? What are they thinking? What are they seeing? Are they losing sleep at night? Right? Are they have they lost their appetite? Do they always feel like, they're on edge? Are they short with people? Right? What is it that they are experiencing and dealing with? Does it cause them to draw, to drink at night? Same thing with on the pain side. I'd be asking myself to say, well, what kind of pain am I talking about? Where am I talking about it? Is it stopping them from doing certain things? Are they struggling to get out of bed in the morning? Right? Is it all right? Is it yoga for is it back pain that they get out of bed in the morning? They got to get out super slow because everything is stiff and tight and pain. They can't even tie their shoes, right? So that we could say, right, something along the lines of, wake up in the morning, loose, limber, and be able to tie your shoes fully bent over without without experiencing any pain or tightness. Like, that's measurable. That's concrete. That's moving in the right direction. And so you just got to unpack a little bit more. You got to go from vague to specific. Like, stress, what does that mean in their life? What are they experiencing? What are they seeing? What are they feeling? How is it impacting them? What is the sign or symptom of this increased stress in their life? Right? Like, how is it manifesting itself? What is it about the way that it's manifesting itself that they don't want, that they don't like, that they're irritated by, that they're uncomfortable with, that we could say that will stop, that will no longer be there. You won't have to do that anymore. You won't have that anymore, right? You'll never have to take in, any kind of medication at night or supplement to fall asleep. You'll fall asleep within 15 minutes after you hit your head hits the pillow, right? Like, see how that's what we're moving towards, more specific, away from vague general descriptions. Within the agency world, a lot of people think that they have a lead gen. Oh, okay, I answered that already. Sorry about that. Then the first line of my ad, for example, talks about something that no one else is talking about, like your SEO agency is about to reach a client plateau. Want to know why? Would that be in the direction of bringing up an unaddressed problem they haven't thought about their symptoms? Not necessarily. So your SEO agency is about to reach a client plateau. Want to know why is a proclamation, is almost, you could make the case, is a prediction. It's not necessarily an unaddressed problem, unless you introduce something that, look, unless you introduced a problem that they are about to have, or that they do have, that they're unaware of, that is quietly, nefariously leading them to a client plateau. And unless they solve that unaddressed, issue, they are going to hit a plateau and blah, 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 blah. But just simply saying your SEO agency is about to reach a client plateau, want to know why, isn't right. There is no yet unaddressed, right? You could say it's about to hit a plateau because you don't have a significant, or you don't have a steady way of getting new clients. That's not necessarily an unaddressed root problem. Okay. You're absolutely correct, Michael. This is all why, all this stuff that in here is why the examination stage is so freaking critical. It's why it is essential. It's why it is valuable. The more you know about your prospect, the more you understand about your market and your prospect, the easier the copy process becomes, right? The more you understand, right? Like, the more you understand, the easier this process is. The less you understand, the more difficult it is. I would really say that that a better way of saying it is the less you know about your market, the more likely you are to be off the mark. That's really the reality, because what happens is the less you know about the market, the more your own thinking colors your copy. And unless you are the market, right, you're likely to be wildly off the mark. And so let's do this and let's keep cruising. And let's talk about the unique mechanism. So just a couple things here to talk about the unique mechanism. And again, this is all really foundational stuff. The unique mechanism, you guys know, hopefully, is the unique piece, part, component, process, aspect, framework, system, method, whatever you want to call it, formula behind your product, which solves the problem and produces the result. It is how your product or service works. It's the reason why your product or service works. So whether you've got an agency, right, and you do it for them, right, you're still producing a result for them. Remember, you're still presenting a solution. You're still solving a problem. You're still giving them the feelings that they want to have by giving them the result that they want, by alleviating the problem. And so how, like, if you say we're able to get top search engine rankings, how? What's the process that you use? And why is your process superior to every other agency? Like, why you is really why not, why you, meaning, right, like, why your method? Why should I believe that your method is great? What makes your method special? What makes your process unique? And so, oops, it looks like, thank you. This is why I can't be left alone, because there are no slides on the screen. How it works and the reason why your product works. And so this is the beauty of this, just to give you a little bit, is you can identify this in almost any product or service. I always say all the time, people ask when I'm on, when I speak conferences or these like podcast episode things, people will ask, like, who does the E5 method work for everybody? And I always say the same thing, that the only product or service that it won't work for is when you are selling a pure commodity product. If you were selling a glass of tap water, right, then it's extremely difficult to develop a unique mechanism, because it's a glass of tap water. It's a commodity that you can get the same glass of tap water up the road, to the right, left, north, south, whatever. But as long as you're not selling a pure commodity, you can identify a unique mechanism. The reality is that the unique mechanism is, for lack of a better phrase, right, sharing with you guys in full transparency, is a marketing invention. It's simply about looking at your product through a different lens. So while there are some products out there on the market that have what I would call, again, for lack of a better phrase, a legitimate unique mechanism, meaning they've got a proprietary piece of software, they've got something patented, they have an actual unique mechanism in there. The reality is that the overwhelming majority of unique mechanisms are marketing inventions. There are ways of positioning, repositioning, and presenting a particular product or service. And so as long as you're not marketing and selling a pure commodity, you absolutely can identify your own unique mechanism. The reality is this, that the single most valuable thing that you can do for yourself to, and this is important, right? Because tomorrow, when we get into the nitty-gritty details, you're going to see me talking about unique mechanisms and how we present the unique mechanism and how we frame the unique mechanism and whatnot. And that's why I want you to understand this. And this is essential. This, to me, is one of the most valuable things for you to understand as it relates to writing copy, is the mechanism. The reality is that the single most valuable activity that you can do as it relates to the unique mechanism is not naming it. Naming it is one of the easiest parts. It's also one of the most insignificant parts. I always say that there's only one rule I have only one rule I have for naming the unique mechanism. That is, don't name it something that sounds benefit driven. Don't name it something that sounds commercial. Don't name it the explosive muscle building system or the explosive muscle building formula, right? Which clearly has no credibility and sounds commercialized. Instead, what you want to name it, something that sounds scientific, something that sounds official, something that could appear in a news article, something that could appear in a college textbook. You want it to sound legitimate, not like a commercialized, benefit-driven product. Save your product names for those benefit-driven, commercialized sounding feels. But for the unique mechanism, make it sound official, right? Like, and the beauty is this, I want you to understand something. Every single thing out there that has a name, somebody named it. So one of the things that, like we get clients that are like, what do you mean? That sounds kind of scammy and cheesy, like scammy, like I'm naming, I'm naming the mechanism. Like, who am I to name it? Who was anybody to name anything? That's the reality. Who is anybody to name anything? Every single process, system, method, framework out there that's got a name, someone named it. Someone came up with a name for everything. And so the reality is that why not you? Right. And you'll understand the foundation of why you should feel comfortable doing this in just a second, but you name it. You just don't want it to sound commercial. You want it to sound more credible. That's that part that I just shared right there. The naming it is the least important part of the entire process with the unique mechanism. The single most important part with the unique mechanism is that you spend the time interrogating your method, meaning that you spend the time unpacking what it is that you do. Why does it work? How does it work? Why do you do what you do? Why those 6 steps? Why in that order? Why not 7 steps? Why not the 5 steps? What happens if you do it out of order? Why does this work when you do it this way? Why do you do it this way? Right? All of that. By spending that time unpacking your mechanism, that's what's going to give you the information you need for something that we're going to do in just a little bit. That is the single most valuable thing that you can do with the unique mechanism is understanding how does your thing work. It's amazing to me, gang, how many marketers and entrepreneurs, I don't care, agency folks, educators, trainers, experts, coaches, consultants, I don't care. It amazes me how many people just take for granted the way their thing works. It's almost like they do it intuitively, right? And they've never spent the time to think about why do they do it that way? And why do they do it in that order? And what would happen if they did it out of order? And what would happen if they added a step? What would happen if they took out a step? Why do you do this first? Why do you do this second? Why do you do this third? Why are all these pieces necessary? What role does this play? What if we took this out? What would change? What wouldn't happen? What would that lead to? All of those things, right? All of those things are part of the interrogation process to understand the mechanism. And that's essential because that's where you identify what it is that we're ultimately going to use to give support, the logical foundation, the logical justification, the logical support for what makes your mechanism superior. See, check this out, gang. I want you to listen to me for 1 second here. So, and then somebody remind me that I got to share my screen again once I'm ready to share the screen. So check this out. Right. So, we talked about like, look, you're ultimately showing your prospects, your marketplace that you've got something different and superior, that your solution, listen to me, that your solution is the best, right? That's ultimately what we're saying, that your solution is superior. Well, for every single one of you, I have to believe that you believe that your solution is the best. I have to believe that you're doing it the way that you're doing it, whether it's agency, whether the system that you're teaching or equipping people with or showing people. I have to believe that you believe it is the best. I have to believe that if you didn't think it was the best, you would do it a different way, right? You're not intentionally doing or using a subpar method. I believe that you are doing it because you believe it's the best. Therefore, right? Therefore, we just need to understand, why do you believe that it is the best? The why you believe that it is the best comes from the interrogation. It comes from the questioning of, why do you do what you do? Why do you do it this way? Why not do it a different way? What would happen if you changed the order of it? What would happen if you took a piece out? What would happen if you put something random in? What would happen if you skipped this step? What would happen if you did this step a different way? What would happen if you automated it instead of doing it the manual way that you do it? Why do you do it the manual way? What's the benefit of that? What's the change of that? See, because of all of that, all of the questioning of that gives you the reasons why. The reason why we do this is because X, Y, Z. It leads to LMNOP, and that's important because that allows us to do X, Y, Z, and blah 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 blah. All of that stuff gives you the fodder. If somebody were to say to you, "Why is yours the best?" Why is yours the best? Why is your superior? Why is your method superior to every other method? Not why are you superior? Not what makes you better? Not what makes you smarter? Not what makes you cooler? What makes your method, your approach, the thing that you're going to teach me, what makes it superior compared to every other method? So you're going to tell me about growing a green, lush lawn. Why is your method superior to the other 6 methods for growing a green, lush lawn? Tell me what makes your method superior, right? You can't answer that question unless you have spent the time interrogating your unique mechanism or your process, your framework. And when you have spent the time, or you do spend the time, man, that becomes so much of the body of your campaign, the argument of your campaign. That's where all of that information, when people hear me say the campaign argument, the stuff that you're going to see me unpack for you, like I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you an example in a little bit. I'm going to show you copy today before we wrap, before we get into the big day tomorrow, copy day, right? Like so much of the campaign argument that people are intimidated by comes from the answers to the questions that I just shared with you. Comes to the answers to the questions that I just shared with you. And you've got to recognize that that is critical. And so let's go back here. Understand, right, that the unique mechanism is what gives the prospect hope, and it gives them justification for the hope. Because they see this as the unique mechanism as, maybe this is what I've been missing. Maybe this is what I've been lacking. Maybe this is why I failed before. Maybe this is why nothing else worked. Maybe this is the one answer. Maybe this is the ticket right here. And so it stimulates a feeling of hope. You see, you've got to recognize that we're in essence, and we're going to talk about this in a bit, right? We're giving them something new, right? New. And this new thing, right? This different thing, right, is better than everything else. So we're not just giving them something better. We're giving them something different, which is better. Right? So we're not just improving on or fixing some small little piece. We're giving them something different, which is superior. And so because it's different than anything that they've tried before, it stimulates this hope. It might seem like a nuance, but it's so much more powerful than just you're doing things this way. I'm going to show you one improvement on how to do that one thing that's going to change everything for you. That's nowhere near as powerful as you're doing it this way and not getting results. I'm going to show you a different way to do it that's even easier, that produces even faster results and better results for you. It's the different, this is different and better, not just better, that gives folks this feeling of hope. And that is enormously powerful. Enormously powerful. And so get that. Next, we're going to go into the offer solution. Before we do that, we are going to take our final bio break of the day. We're going to take our final our final bathroom break of the day. Let me see here. 10 minutes. And where is this thing? I do have a countdown somewhere. And so this is what happens when you do your own hang on one second. Let me see here. There we go. All right. 10-minute bio break. So it is 3:32. We're going to be back at 3:42. And then we're going to rock and roll. Still so much content to cover. And so 10 minutes. I love it. Okay. And so just to make sure you guys can see me, hear me, actually, let me do this because we're going to go into, and we're going to cruise, but I want to make sure that you guys can see my screen. And so somebody just let me know, you see my beard and hear your manly voice. Awesome. On the manly voice thing. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you guys. Cool. So I want to talk about, let's keep going. Let's keep cruising. Odds are we're going to go a little bit over. So a little bit over 5 o'clock, and odds are I'm still going to have stuff that we're going to carry over to tomorrow. And so, but we're going to cover it all. And so here, I want to talk to you about, want to move to the next thing. And I mentioned this earlier, and this is valuable for you to understand. And so I'm going to try to actually pick up the pace with a lot of this stuff. You guys can hang with me. And like I said, on Monday, we'll do the Q&A, and I'll stay as long as necessary to make sure that everybody's questions get answered. And so 3 hours is nothing for me, for us. And so I want to talk about the offer solution, and I want to frame this, and I want you guys to listen to me. And so I know that it's been a long day so far. We are still just scratching the surface. I still have some really, really important stuff to cover with you in the remaining time today. And so please, please, please just hang in there. I promise it'll be well worth it for you guys. If you give me the next 90 minutes of your time. And so I want to talk about the offer. And I want to talk about just one piece of the offer. And this is something that's really been on my mind a lot more lately, something that I've communicated with my team a lot more. And I mentioned this earlier, that there is a neglected component when it comes to putting together offers, that in the spirit of transparency, I only really learned, it only really became top of mind for me. Really, I would probably say it became really top of mind for me in like the last 18 months or so. And so I want you to think of the offer, and I want you to think of there being two main kind of elements, two main buckets or categories when we think of the offer. And the reason why what I started to say was that, like, this is money. The offer is so important. Like we talked about at the very beginning of the morning workshop, the offer is a make or break element. And this one part that we're going to talk about is really a make or break element in terms of the offer. And it's something that most marketers don't know and or neglect. So two buckets. The first bucket that people think of, that most people go to, that I used to go to when it comes to offer creation, is the idea of an irresistible proposition. And the irresistible proposition is this idea that it's really made up of those elements that we talked about earlier. What are the deliverables? What's the features, the advantages, the benefits of those things, the functional, dimensionalized, emotional, what's the price, what's the terms, what's the risk reversal, what's the premiums, what's the reason to respond now. And when most people think about, and listen to me, when most people think about putting together an irresistible offer, what they're really thinking about is the irresistible proposition portion of the offer. They're thinking about what deliverables can we add? What are the right deliverables? What deliverables would be extremely valuable? What are the benefits that we can articulate with all these deliverables? What's the right price point? What's the right terms? Should I go with a soft offer? Should I go with a hard offer? What's the right risk reversal? Should we go conditional, unconditional? Should we use a combination? Should we give double your money back? Right? What are the premiums that we're going to add in? What do the premiums address? What additional benefits do they give? Right? And what they think of when they think of putting together an irresistible offer is they're really thinking about this component, the irresistible proposition. And while this is important, what I said earlier to you guys and gals is even more important. And that is the other component being what I refer to as an attractive solution. An attractive solution is ultimately how compelling, how interesting, how attractive is the solution that you are proposing the prospect pay for, right? So is it an attractive solution and you're making an irresistible proposition for an attractive solution, or is it an ugly solution? And yet you're still making an irresistible proposition for that ugly solution, because it's these two things combined that ultimately determine how compelling your offer is, how good your offer is. And you need both. And this is the thing that, right, like I really didn't fully grasp, or I wasn't able to wrap my head around. I was almost, in the spirit of transparency, I almost used to think that it was, to give an extreme example, that it was a matter of the product. The solution is the solution is the solution is the solution. It is what it is. We're not going to look to improve it, to make it more attractive, whatever, whether we're selling something gorgeous or selling something hideous, it is what it is. Right. And we're just going to make the most irresistible proposition that we can for this hideous thing. Right. Let's say. Right. And I almost didn't put any thought into, from a marketing perspective, how attractive the solution was. I just put all the thought into making an irresistible proposition. And the reality is that a really hideous solution, that I don't care how irresistible the proposition is, people aren't going to want it. And so what I'm saying is, right, if something is or feels extremely difficult to use, it takes a long time to see the rewards of, there's a steep learning curve, it requires a massive investment, it's tedious, all of that, right? If you've got an unattractive solution, an irresistible proposition might increase the amount of people that say yes, but it's not going to push you to that double-digit sales conversion rate that folks are after. And so you need a combination of both. And so I just want to quickly cover the elements of an attractive solution. So I'm not going to talk about the irresistible proposition. I've talked about that many, many times before. But I want to talk about what makes for an attractive solution. So, right, if you are, let's go back to that weird example of I want a lush green lawn, right? And so I've got a system that I'm going to teach you, that I'm going to equip you with to get that lush green lawn. You follow this system and it's going to give you a lush green lawn, gorgeous, full, blah, blah, blah lawn. It's going to look like carpet or whatever, in 5 weeks or whatever. And I'm going to teach it to you. I'm going to teach it to you with, videos and cheat sheets and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to give you all this stuff, and here's what it's going to do for you. And here's the price, and here's the terms, and here's the guarantee, and blah, 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 blah. Well, as I said earlier, if that method for growing a green, lush lawn is extremely tedious, if it requires 4 hours a day of my time, it requires manual labor, me out there working with tools that I then have to invest in out in the sun. It's a very precise process or very precise solution. So if I make one mistake, I blow the whole thing. It works very slowly. So I'm not going to see the first sprout of grass for weeks. what was I going to say? And, and because it's so tedious and so in depth and requires consistency, there is a low likelihood of success. I don't care how irresistible the proposition is. You're not going to get the masses to take advantage of that because the solution itself isn't attractive. Remember, when we talked about the offer, we said that what does the prospect need to give and what do they get? What do they need to give in time, energy, effort, manpower, resources, investment, as well as the money exchange to get the actual solution, to get the product? And so I want you to understand that our aim, when possible, and I want you to think about this in the context of creating new product, new offers going forward, is that the beauty in something like an agency, consulting, coaching, courses, training products, information products, live events, master, all that kind of stuff. I want you to think that you've got the ability to create new solutions, to re-engineer solutions to make them more attractive. And what we ultimately want to do is we want to start with engineering, creating an attractive solution, and then wrap it in an irresistible proposition. So think about like how attractive is the solution that we are offering in the deliverables as part of the proposition. We want to start with making our solution as attractive as possible, and then we want to wrap it in an irresistible proposition. So I already said, and this is right, wrong, or indifferent, right? This is just the reality of what exists in a powerful solution or in an attractive solution. Number one, it solves a significant problem. That goes without saying, right? So it's only valuable based on the problem that it solves. It produces a big desirable result. And so remember I said earlier that we're not talking about insignificant results. The bigger the result, the outcome, the transformation that a solution produces, the more attractive it is. The smaller the result, the outcome, the less attractive it is, right? So you'll get 11 extra visitors a week to your website using my traffic system, right? Is not attractive. Even despite the rest of these elements here, if that is a tiny result, a tiny outcome, it doesn't make for a very attractive solution. And therefore that unattractive solution wrapped in an irresistible proposition isn't going to convert nearly as well. And so I want something that produces a big desirable result. Next is it's new. It's not simply better. And this I already alluded to earlier. This is replacement, not improvement. That's something that Dan Kennedy wisely said many, many years ago. My buddy Russell Brunson, co-founder of ClickFunnels, talked about in one of his books, I think. And that is that we're giving them something new. We're not giving them an improvement to what it is that they're already doing. We're giving them something new. We're replacing the old. We're getting rid of the old and replacing it with something new. We're not taking the old and making it better. We're replacing the old with something new. And so if you think about, look at the E5 method as an example. The E5 method, for example, the E5 method isn't a way of doing better marketing. It is a system that replaces your old method of marketing. It's a system that replaces the old approach or the other approaches to crafting a customer acquisition campaign. And it replaces it with an altogether new system. And so the solution, it becomes more attractive when it is new, not simply better. When it's new, right? When it's different, new, and obviously superior, which we're going to talk about, or I'm going to mention, you're going to see here, which I've said umpteen times already. And so replacement, not improvement. It sounds strange when you think about when I first started pondering this many, many moons ago, when I first heard Dan say this, I was like, is that really true? Like, don't people really just want a slight tweak, a slight change to the old to make it better? Like, it doesn't replacement seem, more like more work involved? But the reality is that replacement gives people hope because prospects doubt, especially when they've tried something for a long period of time. When you're dealing with prospects that have tried the old way or the previous way with lack of results, right? They doubt the likelihood of a small tweak. They doubt the reality of a small tweak being the thing that changes everything. And so they doubt that, right? Like, how could it be one tweak to what it is that I've already done that's going to produce these big, gigantic results when I haven't had any results prior? And so the belief in the viability of the thing increases when it is replacement, not improvement. Next is, of course, I said it's viewed as unique and different. So we're not selling more of the same. We're not selling an improvement on something that's already out there, or a tweak or an enhanced version of what's already out there. We're selling something different, right? Something unique. Next is it's seen as superior to other options. We talked about this already. Next is right, wrong, or indifferent. It's quick and easy to implement. The reality is that not everything is quick and easy to implement. Not everything can be presented as quick and easy to implement. For example, I never use that phraseology when talking about the E5 method, that it's quick and easy to implement, because it's not quick and easy to implement. But fortunately, it produces better results than anything else. And so the reality is you're not always able to have a solution that is quick and easy to implement. But the quicker and easier something is to implement, the more attractive it becomes. You should know that with people in general. They want